All right. Man, oh man. Another day, another dollar. Dude, you know what? I'm up to 22 followers on Twitch. And I know in the grand scheme of like followers, I think that's pretty cool, man. I think that's pretty cool, especially being on something brand new, a platform that I had no idea how to build on. What I was doing on, I had no clue about how to even stream and set any of this up, and slowly but surely things keep coming together, which is really, really cool. It's been a process of trying to get all the gadgets. Jesus Christ, I sounded old. Holy shit, gadgets. Oh my God, I'm going to go run in traffic. Oh, anyways. Oh my God. It's been a while. It's been a journey trying to get all these things within streaming to work together in unison. And there's no echo. No echo like last time. Yeah, I got that down. I figured that out. Man, this has been a hell of a ride, hell of a process. And, you know, each one of these streams that I do, I kind of find out something new. And it's really been really, really cool. I've had a lot of fun doing it. And these training video reviews are becoming more and more popular. We have quite a bit of videos today. I don't know how I'm going to cover all these, to be honest with you, because last time we did not have this many. And the time before that definitely didn't have this many. So this is becoming more popular. And I got to admit, man, I really had an internal fight doing things like this again for the fitness industry. And so I want to say that, you know, starting this, those who have joined and those who have submitted videos, man, I really, really appreciate it. And the reason I should explain for those that are watching, like why I've had a hard time giving back to the fitness industry before I did get into this. It's because the current state of it is absolutely awful. And I know that's easy to kind of pick apart the bad things, but to the point where it's like there's so many tools and resources, so many people to learn from. There's still people that just don't give a shit about people anymore. And it's ruining a lot of people's experience. And so for the most part, for many, many years, I just didn't add to the clusterfuck. And that's kind of how I saw it. I was like, I don't want to add to this madness anymore. And I realized if no one's going to step up, not no one, but if I'm not going to sit here and step up and try to make it better and try to provide more to those of you that aren't getting, I think, the quality of service you need and deserve, and the attention you deserve, and the detail orientation you deserve. Like I do that for my athletes, but a lot of people don't get that. Well, then I might as well bring something to the table. In fact, no, flip the table, and I might as well do it to the fullest. You know, I might as well give it everything I got and bring something for free that brings a lot of value. And a lot of people tell me they look forward to this, and I think that's really cool, man. I'm really, really grateful for that. So I just want to say first, thank you. And then second of all, the reason why I'm doing this and how this can make a difference in people's training. And I know there's a handful of you in here now. Hey, Dua Lipa, how's it going? Hi. I always appreciate you tagging along too. Even though it's bodybuilding related. There's some things you can learn. I don't know. I hope. But I just really wanted to say that thank you, and now we're going to get started. And definitely want to make this fitness space a little bit better, a little bit more educational, weed out or try to drown out some of the horrid stuff that we see and the horrid information. My God. Okay, so we got a lot to go through. So here we go. I have no caffeine. I'm riding off of just pure testosterone right now and adrenaline. I've been working again nonstop. Haven't got out of my chair yet. It's been a hell of a start to the season, that's for sure, man. It's been incredible. So we got Big Sam on screen. Sam just got done competing at Nationals not too long ago. She has a 45-degree angle hyperextension. Now, there are many different formats to this exercise, but this one for her is her nemesis. And so I named it as such. It's her nemesis. And it's not easy for a lot of people, actually. I think a lot of people have a tough time with this exercise, but here I'm going to give you the key. I'm going to give you the key. When I tell you this, it may make a lot of sense to you, because if you can just take the exercise I'm about to tell you what it is and you just turn it at an angle, you're going to go, holy shit, why didn't I think of that? This, my friends, is just a hip hinge movement. That's all it is, just a hip hinge movement. It is an RDL with your legs braced in place and you are turned at an angle. Wow. Yeah, that's all it is. So when we go through this, it really will make a lot of sense when I say that, because look, the only movement that should be happening if we're doing a glute biased 45-degree angle, hyperextension here, and again, this is strictly for glute max, then ultimately the only thing that should be moving is our hips. And I like to tell people this. You know those folding chairs, those like plastic and aluminum light folding chairs? You know the hinge joint between the back and the seat, and just opens and closes like this? That's all you're doing. You're just opening and closing. So we're gonna run through this. Wow, I really don't like that sound. Hold on, there we go. Okay. So what we're looking for is, do the hips move? Yes, they should. They should have an open and closed joint. Back should not be moving. This spinal flexion shouldn't exist. I want you to treat it as if it's an RDL. This doesn't mean you're not going to have supporting cast members. It doesn't mean low back isn't bracing. It doesn't mean hamstrings and calves aren't bracing. Toes are bracing. All of these things are bracing, right? And the further you put weight away from the leverage point, or our focal point being the glutes, the heavier it's going to get. And your bracers, i.e. low back, hamstrings, are going to take a little bit of a load. And I think weight is really hard to hold on this, and there's multiple ways to do it. You could hold dumbbells. You could put a barbell on your back, I guess. You could hold a plate like this. Sometimes there's machines where you can hold, there's like a cable down below on the ground, and you can hold the cable or attach a bar attachment to it. It's great. But honestly, I don't have a lot of complaints here, Sam. I know I threatened to roast you, but there's nothing to roast you about. Because when you move, your lower back doesn't have this flexion. Look, at the top here, we should be able to see like indents on the sides of your glutes. Guys, if you go to flex your glutes right now, you should be able to feel an indent in your glute muscle on the side. We should be able to visually see that indent at the top here. And if we're not, we may not be getting the contraction we want. I'm not saying you need the contraction or you need to squeeze the hell out of them. I'm saying there should be engagement there. You should be able to poke your glutes in a lot of glute exercises and literally feel the engagement. So, I think you may, in your warm-up sets, you may want to take your hands, put them to the side of your glutes, put them on the side of your glute max. So like, okay, am I getting good contraction there while maintaining really, really good braced spinal or spine and no absent of spinal flexion, okay? You have to kind of slightly bend your knees here. Soft knees, I think, is the terminology we're going to want to use here. But I think if you could do that, this exercise is great. Just watch the spinal flexion. When you come up, think about pulling through your glutes. Like if you pull through your glutes, you're going to get really, really good engagement out of this. Again, we should be looking for visual cues of glute engagement being the indent in the side of the glutes. So again, it's pretty good. Pretty good. Next, we got another one from Sam. This is another hip hinge movement. So again, we're just going through hip hinge movements here a lot of times, which is really good because they're probably the most problematic for most people. But here's what we're going to do. Okay, we got a Smith machine here. You got the, basically a good morning. And a good morning is an RDL. Again, another RDL. It's just a different variation. You may say, why put all these in the same plan? There's nothing wrong with putting the same movements mechanically into an exercise or into a program. Like this whole theory that you just have to have one specific movement and that's the only movement, it shouldn't be replicated. I like to bring up the example of like shoulder raises. People will ask, what's the difference between a cable raise and a dumbbell side raise or a machine side raise? They're all side raises. There is no difference. The resistance curve may change from exercise to exercise or machine to machine. That's cool. There's differentiation there in resistance curve, but they're still just side raises. We're just talking about driving more volume to a specific group using a grouping of exercises. There is nothing wrong with that. This whole thing, it has to be different. It has to be new. Look, in bodybuilding, there's not a lot of new shit. Get used to doing the same shit. It's really what it is. So let's look at this. What we're looking for here again is, I'm really looking for her low back, making sure low back is not like arched. I'm not seeing this spinal flexion backwards, giving this like arched spine. We want to keep a very neutral spine. And that includes neck and head in a neutral position. That is not neck down. I don't know who invented that neck down is neutral spine. No, the frick it's not. It is not. So hips should be moving back. And honestly, the fact that we're on a Smith machine, it is an angled Smith, hips are facing the direction of the angle down or out, right, of the weight. That means the weight is trending down and back towards hips, sort of, for the most part. She would not want to be facing the other way. We have a great hip hinge here. This is great. Some slight knee flexion here. But again, when those knees bend, those knees aren't moving forward over toes. That's key. If knees move forward over your toes, like I said before, that's your check engine light. Your hip hinge is, you done messed up, Ron. Okay? If your knees move forward in the hip hinge when you go to bend your knees, you're going the wrong way. Yeah, you just got to stick to making sure hips move back, knees don't go forward. Someone with longer femurs, definitely possible. But again, I think these are beautiful. You want to be careful as this gets harder. Two things. One, the high bar position here may become problematic. It may be a little bit deleterious to your bracing. The higher you put this weight up on your traps, the further we are from our leverage point, and it may get a little bit difficult to brace. You may have your upper back may start to arch. So what I do suggest for a lot of people, if they have problems with that and they're having a tough time bracing with their low back, ride a low bar setting. Put this sucker lower, like top of your scapulas. Spread out your grip a little bit more, right? And you should be good to go with that. Hopefully that makes sense. But again, we're just looking for hip hinge. Watch squatting too far down. I think she does a great job. And again, at the top of the movement here, are glutes engaged. Don't push your hips forward to engage glutes, but think, are my glutes engaged? Are my glutes tight? Because this is the shortened position. Okay, we're going to go down in the lengthened position. Here we are. They're fully lengthened. Add a little knee bend. Great. Up. Are they contracting there? Are they tight? And not tight because you're pushing hips forward. Very key. She does a great job. But I wanted to bring up bar position, high bar versus low bar settings. This is huge, especially for people that have longer torsos. If you have longer torsos, you got to ride that low bar setting in most cases because it gets just too far away from our hips and it becomes a little bit deleterious to bracing efforts, okay? But overall, great exercise. She has to stay in a little bit of RIR for right now, so I'm not going to grill her on her intensity. Maybe. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to. Good. No, this is great. Okay. Oh, Big Sam has one more. Big Sam. It's funny. She was like a whole 96 pounds in prep on stage. Oh my God. No, she was like 100 pounds on stage, but like her lowest like 195 or something like that. 95 pounds. Crazy. Okay. Shoulder press. VVV important topics when it comes to pressing movements. 1, elbows. We maybe want them a little rotated in. It's not absolutely necessary, but what we're trying to avoid in a shoulder press is sternum from raising. We don't want this like raised sternum position in a shoulder press because anytime we change our sternum position and it increases, what's happening is spinal flexion back, sternum position up, and then all of a sudden I'm getting a lot of clavicular pec engagement. Sternum down, braced. I really tighten my core a little bit here. Make sure my sternum stays down and my back is flat against the pad. Flat back. Yeah, flat back all the time. Oh boy. Okay. So we're going to watch this go through. We're just looking to make sure those elbows stay rotated in a little bit. As much as the machine will allow, this machine doesn't really allow too much. Because if you look at the grips, they keep you in a very horizontal position. There's no like way to rotate your wrists If you rotate your elbow too far and your wrists are like being turned out, ripped out, it's a little bit, it just causes a little bit of contortion. So I do try to avoid that. If we have another shoulder press, sometimes when it causes discomfort, either at the shoulder joint, whether it's AC joint or your rotator cuff, or we're causing a little bit of wrist discomfort, I will sometimes opt for a machine that allows you to have an angled grip pattern. In this one, there's no other choice, but overall, these are great too. Just keep your back flat, especially right here. When she's starting to struggle, right? A lot of people like to lift their sternum real quick and then their chest starts taking over or assisting in this movement. She does a great job at keeping her shoulder brace, and she knows it. Look at that face. She knows she killed it. Get him, thug. Hell yeah. All right. Next. Okay. Laura's back. All right. So first, we're going to break down kind of what we see initially in this exercise. Obviously, it's a Bulgarian split squat. The key here with what I'm seeing is very quad bias. We've went over on this stream numerous times about how angle of the Smith matters because the weight moves right in a certain pathway, and that changes weight distribution. And here we got the weight distribution going down and forward. So the fact that this is more quad bias, I'm looking for a couple things. One, do we get very, very sharp knee flexion? Like, is it hamstring to calf, right? Really sharp knee flexion. The second piece is I'm making sure her upper body doesn't get too far bent over. The more bent over she is, the more hinged her hips are. And when hips are hinged, we got glute max elongation. So what I'm looking for here is to make sure this stays upright. And so in most cases, in a quad bias setup for the Smith Bulgarian, we want a really narrow stance between our feet. So front foot, we're not taking too far of a stride, whether we're doing a barbell, dumbbell, Smith, whatever it is, our stride forward isn't going to be too far. It's going to be relatively close to this back leg. So let's see this at its deepest point. Boom. Okay. We're at its deepest point. We got hella knee flexion. We are a bit hinged, but nothing too crazy. I think if I was to pick this part apart from rep 1, I would probably try to move this this box here she's on, I would move this a little bit forward by like maybe an inch, but it'd be the back foot I'd bring closer. That way she could remain a little bit more upright. And so you could sink into that knee flexion without getting too far bent over and hinged. Because what comes later in your reps here, we'll see the hips do a little wiggle. I call them the hip wiggle when we're doing single leg exercises, and it's like, like kind of wiggling to get it up. It's lack of bracing capabilities in some cases. And so hips pop up and then upper body kind of lags and it drops our chest down. Okay, so as we go through this, again, I would just make sure this back foot is a little bit closer. Bring the bench closer. Bring this box here 1 inch up. I would say slow this down. If we get into this position, I would spend some time here. And the reason why I would spend some time here is not because you're not strong enough. It's not because I think tempo really matters. What really matters is if we keep this working hip that we're facing right now, this needs to stay braced in the pocket of the hip. You need to keep your hip braced. One thing we don't want to do is sit out towards that hip. We don't want our hips to shift out, and we don't want our hips to shift back. We want our hips to stay under us and braced. Keep your hip capsule braced like you're trying to keep pressure around it. That way, as you move here faster, you'll see your hip starts moving out of the pocket. There we go. There it is. Hips moving out of the pocket. We could go with way more intensity here, right? You could probably do another 5 reps, honestly. And I mean that, 5 reps. But watch this. As we're playing this back, yeah, see this hip moving out of this pocket here? It's a little wiggle. It's a little wiggle, right? So what I want you to do is take time and spend time here, right? Hold on. Right there. Spend time there. Spend a lot of time there and focus on your bracing. Really put pressure into that hip. Keep that hip under you. And when you set yourself up a little bit better so you can stay more upright at the bottom of that movement, do it with no weight first too. when you set yourself up at the bottom of the movement where you can stay more upright and brace your hip in the capsule, yeah, I think it'll be perfect. It'll be really, really good. You mentioned in the question chat, do you recommend doing that if I can't do as many on the other side, my right side, sciatica issue? Not forced reps, but like assisted reps. I think, again, depends where your sciatica issue comes from. I think we can get a little bit of assistance here. We can set ourselves up a little bit better, focus on keeping your hip braced, because what that wiggle that's happening in these reps as we're going through here, how the hip is popping up, right? Hip pops up, upper body kind of comes up next. I think if you fix that, you'll limit agitation maybe a little bit, especially on single leg exercises. Single leg exercises, when we're training like glutes or quads, again, not leg extensions, but other exercises, demand you to be more aware of your bracing. Herniated discs. There you go. Well, even more important than for us to be very braced and a little bit more upright in this position is, you know what I mean? Like way more important. What I would do in your leg exercises, I would just turn down the tempo way down, because people forget an overload. One of the best overload modalities is tempo. People think it's weight or reps or, whatever, or maybe even shortened rest periods. They neglect that tempo is an overload modality and one of the most important ones. And I'm not saying you should go, 10 seconds for each rep or 20 seconds a rep. Like, no. But if we slow it down, especially at the extremes, here in the shortened extreme, brace. Brace really well. Keep your body upright. Support this hip the best you can. That way, when you come out of the hole, hip stays braced and we don't have twisting, L5, L4, things like that. So I hope that helps a little bit. Just slowing this down, getting some assisted reps here, bracing at the hip, a little bit shorter stance, upright position. You'll be good to go here. These are really solid though. Facing the right way. That's for damn sure. All right, next. Here we go. Oh, Gabby. Oh, God. Hold on there, sis. It's going to be one. Let's see. What do we got here? I don't even know what exercise we have here. You definitely look homeless, though. That's for sure. Holy crap. They let you in public like that? It's insane. Okay. So here we go. What I want to say is this. With any bent over movement, and I'm a big proponent of bent over movements. Rows, raises, don't care. But what I would say is it's always better braced. I can't tell you how many times I'd prefer a braced shoulder and back movements over just us bracing with our core. Because when we brace with our core, as you'll see as this exercise goes, upper body movement is allowed. Okay, upper body movement's allowed. So as you go here, there'll be maybe some upper body momentum. And it takes away a little bit from probably our intention. I'm going to assume that intentions is rear delts. Okay. But when you watch this exercise, you're going to get a ton of traps. You're going to get upper, mid, lower mainly, and then some rear delts. What I think should happen is if you do this hip hinge position, right? Stand behind the incline bench that's right in front of you. Stand behind there, post your forehead on that bench, set it at the right height. It's got to come down a little bit. Set it at the right height, RDL behind it, brace your forehead on the pad. This is now your upper body braced position. Okay. You can RDL, little slight knee bend, sink your hips down. Okay. Just like a typical RDL, but it's going to put you in a very braced position and allow you to do this exercise without worrying about bracing your upper body. It just provides you a reference point too with your forehead. Like, if your forehead lifts off the seat, like, okay, I'm probably using momentum. Maybe a good way to kind of spice this up a little bit. Note with any raises, guys, if you're going to lift straight out on raises, side raises or bent over raises like this, you're going to get more traps. A lot of people have overdeveloped traps that I find, and they have underdeveloped medial delts. You go, well, why is that? Especially women. Why is that? There's two reasons. One, women generally have a greater propensity to tighten their traps throughout the day. And even when they go to brace, because they're so used to tighten their traps in stress states, they actually raise their clavicles up, tighten their traps when they go to train too. It's a stress state response. If we can just take a moment to breathe in, drop our clavicles and relax a little bit, even throughout the day, check on yourself. You will get more medial delt engagement and less trap engagement just from that, not even correcting the pathway. But now let's talk about the pathway. If you raise directly out to the side on these pathways, you're going to get more trap bias. If I lift out to 45-degree angle, like a wide Y raise for my side raises, I'm going to get more medial delts, less traps. Immediately, just go like this. Put your arm straight out to the side, touch your trap. Oh yeah, it's engaged, huh? Yeah. Now put it near the 45-degree angle, your trap lowers. It literally disengages when you go in the wide Y pathway. In real time, don't raise straight out. That goes for bent over raises too. So you can't raise in the Y fashion, right, for rear delts. I know that. But it should be in a 45-degree angle. When training rear delts, you're going to be in a 45-degree angle. Okay, so in this case, you ever go skiing and you're like skiing with the fucking sticks? Yeah, okay. You know when you go to ski, you're pushing down and out, right? When you row for rear delts even, you flare your elbows. You don't flare them all the way out here, flare them down here. This will be a better pathway for rear delt training. So again, for these raises, I would still raise in that 45-degree pathway, not straight out, because then I got a lot of traps. If I just wing them down a little bit, I'm going to get a little bit more rear delt. So I hope that helps. Yeah, Annalie. Yeah. Isn't that crazy? It's so crazy with, you just drop your shoulders because like all day, and this is so common amongst women. And I didn't recognize this until my wife really did this. She's like, man, I'm getting these headaches all the time. I always just have really, really bad stress headaches and my traps are tight. And I was like, felt her traps. I was like, girl, what are you doing? Carrying around boulders in your traps? Like, she's not even jacked like that, you know? And so I was like, hey, relax. Like, take a deep breath, relax. And she did. Her shoulders dropped a lot. And then we kind of went through it in her training. It helped a lot there too. Take time throughout your day, ladies. Assess where you're at with your traps and how tight they are. A lot of your headaches and migraines that you get is from stimulus and you tightening your neck all day. Unaware. It's completely involuntary. So note that also happens in training when you go to brace. You probably go to do side raises and you're like, man, my traps are on fire. I'm not training traps. Yeah, you're tightening and bracing with your traps though. Some people can't even train back because they tighten their traps so much. So fun fact about that. But yeah, Gabby, just make those adjustments, get a new outfit. We'll be good. Yeah, that's good. Okay. Amberly, she's back. Guess who's back? Guess who's back? All right. So in this movement, we have another angled Smith. And the angle is pointing down and out towards her glutes. We've been working on this actually over the past couple of weeks together. And now what we're looking for is this going to be glute bias for her? Are her feet in alignment? What happens at the bottom of the movement? This is going to be key. Now, right off the top, feet are a little too far forward, but we'll see. In Smiths, it makes you feel, okay, because the bar is in front of you in this angled Smith, or it feels like it's like driving you forward, people tend to put their feet out in front of them and lean back into the bar unknowingly. And then when you get to the bottom, their feet are way too out in front of them, so their hips kind of pendulum swing down. So a lot of people always just put their feet initially too far forward. What I tell people is this. At the top, when you're standing right up and straight up and down with the Smith and on an angled Smith, you should be looking over your toes. Like, you ever look over a cliff? And, you know, none of you never wanted to jump off a cliff like me. Okay. But if you've ever looked over the edge of a cliff, you like look over and your eyes are above your toes, you know, your eyes are over your toes. But that's kind of how you want to be on this. You want to be looking over your toes on the setup. You're going to feel like you're too far forward, but you're not, I promise. This is how we know that someone's feet are too far forward, right? She has great knee flexion here, but if this was a regular barbell, she'd fall backwards because there's nothing under her to support her. Whereas typically on a barbell, our feet are under us to support us, right? And we'll know when they're under us appropriately when hamstrings meet calves. Now, if some people have a tough time getting hamstrings to calves because their hips hurt or you feel a pinching sensation in your hips, there is ways to fix that. And we can go over that another time. But that's how we know. See this pendulum swing of hips going down and they move towards your feet there, whoop, and then your hips pop up when you go to come up. It's because your feet are too far forward. Bring those puppies back. Like your feet, like take half of your foot and move it back. That's the length we want to go back, basically. I hope that makes sense. Again, we're just going to look at this next rep here. Make sure, yep. And then we go to pop up. You see how we end up in this bent over position? Hips pop up, they swoop up, and then we're a little bit too far bent over. Now, she does a nice job at kind of getting her shoulders up as much as possible, but if our feet are under us more rather than out in front of us, we won't have that issue at all. We'll be nice and upright, especially with your mechanical build or your build in general. Amberly, you will have a very powerful squat once you get this down because of your torso and femur length. I think you have a really powerful squat, really, really strong in this exercise based on your build. So I just would encourage you to get those back a little bit more. That's it. Hopefully that makes sense. Gabby, yeah, I didn't know that your username is Beans on Deluce. Are you fucking kidding me? You straight to jail, you sicko. Oh my God. Straight to jail. How dare you? But you're welcome. Next, who's up? Craig. We got Craig here. Craig competed at nationals as well. Middleweight. Dude, he was peeled. Nasty peeled. Go to my page, take a look. Peeled. All right, we got an incline press here. Okay, beautiful. I really am so glad we have a shoulder press from Big Sam, and then Craig comes in, her husband, with an incline press. What we're looking for here is on chest movements, we do want to elevate our sternum. We want sternum up high, arching our back. So we do want a gap between the seat or the backing and low back. We want an arched sternum position, okay? Elbow pathway should be rotated in towards the torso. The further you get out on chest exercises, the further your elbows flare. A lot of people experience shoulder pain, AC joint, or rotator cuff. And it's because of the shoulder shearing that's happening. But here is a great example from Craig of how to angle your elbows. And although these grips are a little bit fixed, meaning they're immobile, it may not be as ergonomical depending on who gets on there. Still going to get a ton out of this, especially because of the elbow pathway, raised sternum position. That's what we're looking for. And at the top, I want people to replicate like the most muscular pose when you're flexing your chest. Replicate the pose at the top. So that's just the one thing I want to stress here. At the top of this movement, here, right here, I want people flexing their chest. Nail that down. If you have a tough time developing chest or even engaging chest, spend time in the contracted extreme. Don't spend the time there with your elbows locked out because then the pressure or the weight is being carried by your elbows. Spend time with your pecs flexed at the top of movements. Just build neurological connection. I'm not saying it's going to build more muscle tissue. Eventually, because you're recruiting a greater amount of muscle fibers. Truly. If you want to know why most people can't develop a specific body part, it's because they can't engage a greater percentage of muscle fibers in that grouping. That does take you training, neurologically speaking. It takes you training that body part and doing it very well. Sometimes spending time in the contracted extreme or the lengthening position. It takes development. It takes skill development. And it takes time for nervous tissue to grow. So just keep that in mind. All right. Emily has, 2 exercises? Yeah, we got one side for step-ups, the other side for step-ups, and we got RDL. Okay, her thing is growing glutes. And again, I'm trying to use my memory off the email she sent. I know she had a few questions on that email. I apologize, I don't have it on me. But we're going to do the best we can. Okay, cable step-ups. There's two ways to do these. You can do them very quad bias. You can do them very glute bias. She's going for glute bias because that's the one thing that she needs to bring up. She did great in wellness this year. Great physique and great shape. If she brings up her glutes to be far more dominant in her physique, man, people are in for a hurting for sure. So let's go through this, load this up, wait for her to get in screen. We're using, I like the diamond plate step box, different heights to use. Going to want to use this, obviously the highest height here. All right. But this box does cause a problem. And I'll explain why. Well, actually, you're fussing around it right now. You didn't write too much in your email. That's okay. I'm not gonna grill you for giving me details, sis. No way. Heck no. Okay. Here's the issue with this exercise. First and foremost, it's not the exercise, it's the setup, and it's the box. The box prevents you from getting your hand and the cable and foot aligned, right? So what it's doing, it's pulling you down and forward. Resistance is pulling you down and forward. You're trying to load hips. They're literally going in opposite directions. And we talked about this last stream quite in depth with, or was it last stream? Maybe it was the stream before, with hips and resistance moving in opposite directions. That is what's happening here. You got resistance moving in two directions, or resistance and your hips and what you're trying to load and grow moving in two different directions. What we want is this not essentially pulling us forward. So that means the box has to be directly to the side of the cable pulley. I don't know if you have another cable machine. I know this machine doesn't give you a lot of wiggle room, but you want the box right next to the cable pulley. Okay. That way, when you get down to the bottom here, you're hinged back, right? And the weight is pulling you straight down, not down and forward. If we can get your hand, your foot, like the middle of your ankle, foot, and the cable all moving in a line, a perfect line downwards towards the ground vertically, we can now load more appropriately. So that's the only thing that I would say here. You're definitely loading on the proper side, right? You want the side that you're working loaded. That way you can use that free arm, which you're doing, and this is really smart. That free arm that you have on the opposite non-working side, I'd be using that to help me through assisted reps, basically assisted failure or forced reps. I would use that all day. All right, so that's really what we need here. I think you need a taller box. If I'm not mistaken, are you like 5'7" or so, 5'6", somewhere there? I want to say you're a little bit taller, but I could be wrong. Just looking at like your leg length, like tibia length, it's a little bit longer. Femurs are real long. But we definitely want to see, I think you get deeper too. So maybe a box that would allow you to get 2 to 3 inches deeper. And here's another key thing, guys, with single leg exercises, kind of going back to Laura's exercise. We want to make sure this hip, we don't sit into the hip too. Because as you get tired and as it gets harder, you're going to kind of sit into the hip, right? You're going to sit into it. And then you're going to try to like pull up, right? So we just want to make sure that you stay really braced in this back pocket. We want to be about 2 to 3 inch higher on the box. The box has to be to the side of the cable pulley. That way you have this vertical loading from your arm down through the center of your foot, and the cable is in a perfect vertical line along that. Oh, 5'7", I was right. That's crazy. I'm not creepy, I promise. These are just, wow, no, that's weird. Holy crap. No, I assess physiques all day. So when I see like a tibia length and a femur length, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, probably, but to nail it, weird. Anyways, obviously being 5'7", you got to stack on a little bit of size here. You really got to pack on some size. And I will say this more than anything, 5'7" and up, maybe 5'6" in some cases, depending on proportions, really hard to grow proportional. Really hard to grow a proportional physique. You have to be strategic about your exercises and the way that you execute them, which is why I'm being super picky with this one. It's going to require this level of detail orientation in your training to make sure that your glutes come up, because your quads and hams are obviously very developed. So to get this glute max, and especially your glute med, which you lack, you're going to have to make sure loading is correct. We're going to take a look at the other side too, real quick, because I want to make sure that the sides are even here in execution and there's not something like wonky going on. So it's going to be hard to see. We can see in the mirror in the reflection in the corner. So, okay, hip hinge back, which is great. Obviously, the alignment here is off. We fix that alignment issue, will be good. But it doesn't look like you're sitting too hard in that pocket right now. Let's go a couple reps further here. What I'm looking at is to make sure, does this hip drop? Okay, this hip drops a little bit. So one thing on these exercises, and I tell people with single leg cable step-ups, don't use your back foot to search for the ground. People will search and they'll kind of like poke their leg down and that hip will drop. And so now hips are like cockeyed. They're off from being in alignment. Don't search with the back foot. Just keep the back foot flat. Allow your front foot to do all of the work. You only move down by the will and the strength of your front leg. It may make it so you have to go super light with these, but don't search with the back foot. Don't allow your hips to become cockeyed. Keep them very even, and then just fix your loading with the cable, making sure it's completely aligned. And I think these would be really solid. All right, and now we got RDLs. Let's see. Okay, being taller is tough for RDLs. Just in general, they're really, really tough to get down. So we're looking to make sure, one, can we hip hinge? Do we have any mobility issues? And I want to talk about that first initial movement. Okay, so off the top, what happens with the dumbbells? Watch. They come forward, and now there's a gap between the legs. Make sure you're basically like going to drag these down your legs. When I was growing up, I used to watch like deadlifting competitions at my gym, and the guys would walk out with just like bloody shins. It sounds gross, but and the reason why they did that, and they didn't care about their shins, they'd chalk them up and stuff, but they'd walk out with bloody shins because they're dragging the bar right up their shins. Because the closer you can keep the weight to your legs, the better you're able to hinge and the more strength you're going to have. So just make sure the weight stays super close to your body. But hey, this is pretty good. I think there's the right amount of knee bend here. I think the further you try to reach here in this exercise with heavier weight, you're going to have a problem. So let's talk about where your finishing position should be then. Okay, we're almost there. Almost there. Hold on. I think the movement from, hold on, right here to here, like this little movement here, see that? Your hips don't necessarily move back a ton, but you bend over a lot more. So what we can do is we can end the movement. Hold on, right? I just want to get it timed up perfectly. Okay, here's where the lowest point should be on the dumbbells for you. But what I would do is I would bend your knees here and just sink your hips down and back a little bit. So that way maybe your hips drop another like 1.5 inches, but the dumbbells don't drop. This is going to put you in a more upright position in your barbell RDL. Your glutes are going to get more lengthened, and you'll be able to hip hinge a little bit more safely while going up in weight. The problem with being taller is you have to strategically plan out your hip hinges because it's so easy to get pulled far forward and then your low back take a lot of the load. That's where it gets a little problematic. So just make sure that you find this as your finishing position for the dumbbells. Bend your knees, sink your hips down and back. It'll keep you a little more upright and allow you to go heavier, and then overload these suckers to the moon. Like honestly, in your top set, it wouldn't surprise me if you start moving 75s, 80s, maybe 90s, and then you go up from there once you get it down. But I just think at some points, maybe you get a little bit too bent over, and we could add a little bit of knee bend, clean this up. So hopefully that helps on these two. But overall, yeah, small adjustments will go a long way because they're already good movements. They just need to be cleaned up and aligned a little bit better. All right. Danielle. Okay, so we have a diagonal kickback here. This diagonal kickback is great. There's multiple ways to do it, like we talked about last stream. The diagonal kickback is for glute med specifically. So what we're looking for is the top of this glute. Does this sucker raise up? Does it contract? Can we see it contract? Because we should be able to. All right. Emily had a question about her RDL. Should I end the reps at the top or like before I'm straight up? I don't know if I'm very clear on the exercise, so I apologize, or if I'm clear on the question, so I apologize. Maybe you're asking, do I come all the way up? And with an RDL at the top, I would suggest people do come all the way up. You don't have to tuck your hips under you, but like we kind of discussed on Sam's hyperextensions, there should be a visual glute indent on the side of your glute at the top of the exercise, meaning glutes are engaged. We want to do that without pushing our hips forward. We do want to stay in a neutral spine, neutral hip position, no pelvic tilt. And if you push your hips forward, you do cause a pelvic tilt. So I would say that you do want to be straight up and down. You just don't want to push your hips forward. Make sure glutes are tight and they're engaged. And we want to keep glutes engaged until we're ready to move our hips back again. Did I answer your question? I hope so. I know contraction building can be really tough, I think, for quite a few glute movements, especially if we have a tough time building them in general. There's ways to use bands, obviously, to build the engagement and the contractions. And I don't necessarily think many people need, like, quote unquote, engagement exercises. I just think we need to focus on contractions a little bit better. Whether it's at the top of the movement or even like sometimes, and this is for myself, when I'm doing like hip hinges or hip flexion, like a hip thrust, sometimes I'll take my hands, if I'm on like a machine, I'll poke my glutes at the top of the movement. Like, okay, are those suckers tight? Like, oh, holy crap, baby, those are tight. You know, like, okay, got it down. Okay, now I want to take that movement, memorize that, and go, okay, that's what I want to replicate on RDLs, on deadlifts, on kickbacks, on hyperextensions, on good mornings. Every time I'm doing a glute exercise, I want to replicate that feeling without causing a pelvic tilt. If you do that over and over and over again, it's like, how do you get good at posing? Same thing. Hit the contraction, hit the contraction, hit the contraction, hold the contraction. If you do that, you build neurological skill and development. So that's really what we're after here. And so if you do have a hard time building glutes in general or just feeling them, and I think feeling is really misleading until you really understand what you're going for, recognize it at a very stable movement, like your hip thrusts, poke those things, make sure they're rock hard at the top, right? And then keep replicating that. If you have to, again, don't overload with weight, overload with tempo. So now our contraction holds are no longer just 1 second. They're 3 seconds or even 5 second hold at the top of a contraction to build neurological connection within the glutes. That's not something you do forever because you won't need to once it's really good. It's going to be great eventually, you know, it's just going to take some work. So hopefully that helps. All right, Danielle, we're going to hit this diagonal kickback. What we're looking for here with this diagonal kickback is making sure if we're going to do them in this format, which is fine to do in this very hinged position, this is what I didn't want to happen. Okay, we can make this way easier and way better. What we're trying to think when we're kicking back at a diagonal pathway is we're thinking, oh, we got to kick, like we got to turn and kick out. You don't have to turn your body. You don't have to turn your hips. You want to keep your hips square. In all your glute kickbacks, ladies, you want, and gentlemen, maybe, you definitely want to make sure that your hips are square to one another. The moment they turn or they tilt, either anterior or posterior, we're out of alignment. And so what we're trying to do here is make this movement a little bigger than what it is. So let's start from this position here, because in this position where hips are aligned, all I need you to do is kick back at a 45-degree angle. You're going to slightly, and I mean very slightly, you're going to interior rotate your femur, and your foot's going to turn out away from your body. So interior rotate of the femur, just rotating it in, kind of turning your foot out, kicking it out to the side, and then kick back in that direction while keeping your hips stable. Instead of turning your hips like this to try to it's like basically trying to contort to get a bigger contraction, but you're actually taking away from the contraction. And it's not that you're not hitting glute med here, because you can look at the top. I can see that sucker. You could see it contracting. But now if I get your glutes and your hips to align and brace, essentially you're going to get that feeling even better. You will get more engagement or greater engagement if you keep your hips square, okay? So big thing here is just making sure they're square. Here, just interior rotate that femur, kick that foot out, and then kick out to the side. Easy, easy fix. So yeah, nothing really much more to add there. We got a hip hinge movement, hip flexion movement, sorry. Hip thrust. Okay, let's talk about this. So with these machines, and you guys have so many different machines available for your hip thrusting. What we want to try to avoid for hip thrusting, and again, is it the end of the world if you use it? No. But we don't want those hip thrust machines with a platform that puts your feet like up and at an angle and like it's far away from you. We really want at the top of this movement, we want your femurs and your tibia at a complete 90-degree angle. It should be like a straight line. So basically from a straight line from your shoulders all the way to your knee, and then your tibia goes straight down to the ground, creating a 90-degree angle with your foot, which is also at a 90-degree angle. That's what you want at the top of hip flexion. You want 90-degree angles created. Some, like this one, I believe, has a little bit of an angle to the platform. So at the top of the movement, we still want 90-degree angles. Even though your feet are at a slight angle, you can still create a 90-degree angle from that. So I think feet are a little bit far forward in this movement in order to do that. Great hinge on the way down. No hip scooping. Be careful at the top, overextending. At the top, I would stop right there. See how, okay, knees, femurs to shoulders, straight line, perfectly straight line. This is great. This is alignment. Just make sure your glutes are tight here. You don't have to overextend to that position. That slight position is a hip scoop. And man, what we're really trying to do on these hip thrusts, and I've been trying to teach a lot of people, is don't hip dip or hip scoop. If your hips, right here, your hips, do this dip thing, and this is your back, right? To go down with the weight, your hips kind of, they dip, and you now have a pelvic tilt, and then you scoop them up. It's a problem. Your hips and back should move. Here's the fulcrum point being your scapulas. They should move as a lever, as an entire unit. If they just do this hip dip thing, it's not cutting it. You're not getting the glutes elongated. Now, you're not doing that here, but I do want to make that point because it is important. Wow, hold on. Okay. I mean, otherwise, these are really clean. Good control throughout all of this. Beautiful. Just need to change foot position a little bit so you don't end up in these like, you're missing the 90-degree angles. Maybe you're overextending the 90-degree angles here. So feet back, not as high with the hips. Money will be good. All right. Did I get everyone? Did I get it all? Well, hopefully you guys learned a few things. If you can, follow along. I'm almost to 25 followers on Twitch, which makes me an affiliate. I don't know what the fuck that means, but it sounds cool and I want that. So follow, please. Create an account, follow. If you get something good out of this and you learn something, I would greatly appreciate it. And next week we will be back at 5 p.m. with another episode of this fantastic stuff I'm putting on, I think. But yeah, hopefully you guys took something away. If you did, tell your friends, tell your brother, father, mother that I'm cool. Thanks, guys. We'll see you guys next week with some more videos.